We are in part three of the menopause journey with me, Lori Clarke. And I wanted to share with you the new experience because, firstly, we talked about the overview, just about modeling. We talked about, where you learned some of the things that you learned in your life. And the second part was when we talked about feelings and some symptoms that go along with your feelings and how those can play a role in uncertainty and in some ways, now this is just for me, unprocessed feelings were prolonging um, my symptoms. I was fighting really hard against the symptom, and that is not working for me. So I stopped fighting and moved into this other space. So I wanted to share with you now that this next perspective, this here is something that um, I'm going out on as a risk to say I'm not sure if I'm making more of menopause than need be, but it's presenting itself. And like I've said to you, I've had a bit of a struggle with it, not as a recent, but when it first came, I was trying to figure out my life, and I was really surprised by all the feelings that I was having, and I didn't really know where to go. And I thought I could do all of it myself. I thought I could just do it all myself. But I mentioned in the feelings part in part two that one of the things that was giving me a lot of trouble was this uncertainty. And I mentioned also there's a few things that based on my life and my experiences, I really, really, really value. Now, during the transition of menopause, the nature of the word transition or pause is from moving from one state to another. And that is really what's happening. When we got our periods, we moved from child to woman, right? There's this full body experience that's happening. And you begin to um, release and express and let go every month. That's really what your body is doing. And now, in this time frame, there's another transition that's happening. And for me, there was no framework to remind me to release, let go, and transition. And so this transition is not of blood. This transition is back to before, before I was bleeding. And there are many connections here, but some of them are in my experience potentially valuable for you. Take what you want, um, and think about some of the things that maybe make you feel a little bit uneasy or kind of want you to ponder. But this is just my personal experience. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a professional, but I have lived life, and I am happy to share this journey with you. I'd love to hear about your journey if you are so kind to offer it to me as well. One of the things, as of recent, and this is hot off the press. Um, I value safety. And for my life, as I mentioned, in growing up in a pretty volatile situation, I didn't have a sense of safety. And I looked for it. I looked for it in a whole bunch of different ways. And it wasn't until recent where I realized that one of the things I'm feeling with menopause and the lack of certainty around it is that it doesn't make me feel safe in my body or with my body. I was in a meeting the other day and I said this also. I got a hot flash and I was like, I couldn't put on more deodorant because it wasn't working anyway. I was drenched, totally embarrassed. Okay, like honestly, this hot flash came. Whew, my whole face was red. My ears were bright red. My hairline, it started to curl. I have really curly hair. I straighten it, but it was curling because it was so wet. The back of my neck drenched, my armpits drenched, right here. Looked like I had just gone for a run. I and my hands were red. And I'm like, I don't know, like, I don't know what to do. And and afterwards, I was like, I just want to feel safe, to know that I can just, this isn't going to happen. So I had to figure out how to engage with myself on that because there's no reason to beat the crap out of myself. I do that on a regular basis. Let me tell you, I am so hard on myself. I don't know if you're a person that is like me where you have horrible thoughts about yourself. Just like I I'm really hard on myself and I'm learning to treat myself with more grace and kindness. But generally, I'm super tough. What I say to myself, I would never say to a friend. I would never say to anybody how I treat myself. I know. I'm in therapy. It's okay. But even in the middle of that, that treating myself poorly and beating myself up about that. I need to feel safe. What's wrong with me? And all these different things. Like this, just let this be over with. And Laura, you need to be doing something more. You need to be doing more research. You need to be running. Just try to figure out all your solutions. Get out there. Well, that just creates this urgency that creates this striving. This creates this franticness. And I don't want to be a part of that. I was raised like that. I don't want to be a part of that now. So for me, that doesn't feel safe. What feels safe to me is, okay, why is this happening? And as my therapist would say, don't ask why. Ask, where is this happening in my body? When did I feel this way before? How is this expressing itself in my life? It's a new perspective that can create a grounded, anchored, kind, gracious, compassionate, stable, and brave soul. It's as if your body would be saying to you, the way you talk to yourself isn't true. The words that you say aren't true, Lori. You've been informed by your life, but you're not living that now. Let's learn. Let's create the space for safety to dwell here. Let's create the space for life to bring certainty. If you can't find certainty because externally that feels crazy, or internally it's overwhelming, then we need a new perspective and something that we can begin to give a sense of how we can be in the present and show up in the world, continue to show up in the world, and continue to be the most beautiful being as we move and flow through something that feels really rough. Like I said in the overview, I was using the example of a bowling alley and the bowling lane where you have your lane, and if you look down sometimes when you're with well, I'm not a kid anymore, but I still use bumpers because it's a form of cheating and I'm happy with that. But you put your bumpers down so that your ball doesn't go into the gutter all the time, and that's the thing. When it goes in the gutter, you don't hit anything. It just goes off and then it comes back to you. And I feel like that's what this is like. What I'm really looking for is my bumpers. Where is my certainty and my safety? I want to get to that spot. How do I get there? How do I make sure that that ball, it can bounce off a little bit, but I want it to hit one of those pins or get as close to them as I can. And so that's the goal, which can be difficult because we live in a world where surface really is prized. Like it's important. It's important to look good. It's important to well, I think with Instagram and some of the socials, this, and this isn't a time to dive deep on that, but we often look at people's lives and we get this snapshot of their life and we're like, they have the most cleanest house, the perfect everything. Look at them. They look perfect, and we really prize this perfection. I think sometimes, not all the time, and I'm not saying everybody does this, and I'm not saying that, I'm just saying for me, my personal thought is we oftentimes value that more than we value the inner process of where we're going and how we lean into things when things come up. And and this is why I say I might be over my skis here in terms of this conversation. And this might not even land for anybody, but it's the real most authentic way I can connect to myself and to you is by sharing the reality that the outside is the outside and if I get older, I'm not going to be as valuable. Let's be honest. If I start looking old, then you might not love me as much. I'm not as desirable. I'm not as youthful looking. If I can stay as young and put and do all the things that create that space, then maybe I will never age or I won't show it as much. Except when the slap comes, you can't hide it. You can exterior on your exterior, but internally, shit's shutting down. And that's the piece. It's not something that we can evade. It is happening. And so when we live in a world that creates value around what they can see, that external, that appearance, or all of that, it creates a sense of loss of and control. And so I remember when I went to my doctor, I was like, I am sick. I don't know why. I'm had this really crazy fever. It's not going away. We did blood work and he's like, you're in menopause. Pardon? Okay, this is great. But what? He's like, yeah, you're in menopause. You're not feverish, Laura. You're having a hot flash. It's like, oh, okay. When we don't have control of what's happening at any given moment, it can feel like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I can't hide from this. Now, this is actually happening. I'm moving past these years where I was doing things one way, where I was able to create whatever, create my career, create my family life, create, you know, create children or raise children or be a guardian to someone and have all that life force energy and all that stuff. If you're a person who has lived in those years where you're building and creating and giving, and then all of a sudden, boom, something is void. There's something that's missing here. Wow. It is really dynamic. And so it has to be given a space where we can now, look at ourselves in a new way, where we can see with fresh perspective and say, okay, I'm not irrelevant, but goodness gracious, I'm going to have to reinvent myself here. And not, and some of you will go and reinvent and it'll be amazing. And others will just reinvent yourself in a way that is just in your mind, renewing your mind. What I'm inviting you to do here is as you entertain this idea of reinvention, that you can be aware of your body. It would be really important. I've done this and this is a really cool experience that I'm having. And I've done this on my show, on my podcast at the Lori Clarke Show. If you're on Instagram and if you're looking on the web, it's www.loriclarkemedia.com. But what I've been exploring is this somatic experiencing because the emotions sit in our bodies. Of course, we experience things, but we experience something. Let's say love. You experience love, then you feel it. And you feel it, and it is good, either healthy or not healthy. Take something negative like rejection. You don't just feel rejection in your life. Rejection is an experience that then moves into a feeling because there's a response to that. And then it goes into your body and it holds somewhere. And then we have the power to let that go out of our bodies in a way that frees up the space again. Or for me, I didn't know this until recent, but decades, I just stuffed it down, packed it in there, and kept it really, 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 really tight. And so this is a part where we can become conscious of what's inside of us. Because if we're transitioning to a new space, if we're moving to a new level, why don't we do it with gusto? Why don't we do it with no apologies? Why don't we say, oh, yeah, okay, I've lived 40 years one way, or 45, or 48, or 52, or whatever age you are at, and I bust my butt for all of these things. You know what? Now I'm going to take what's mine in a beautiful way, not, possessive, but no. For me, my own personal experience, I had 4 children and I gave myself like poured. I- I'm not going to pour this out, but my beautiful Yeti, I poured myself. If this was all of my life giving years up until right now, I poured all of it out. I gave it. I gave it wholeheartedly, freely. I invested and I worked not only physically in businesses and that, but I worked for them to make sure they were good, running back and forth, all these different things. Maybe you're an individual who was not in that situation. You do not have children, but you built a career for yourself. You built this life. You've got incredible community, friends, all your different pieces are moving. You're still going through menopause. Yeah, we have this that happens to us, and we get to reinvent how we are now. Think about this. So, I have 2 daughters and 2 sons. And I was speaking with my daughters. Well, I actually told them this to my sons too, speaking to them about embracing the totality of a woman and the beauty of her menstrual period. And I said to my sons, you know, it is important for you to know that this is not something that you um, look at and say, oh, she's on her period. I'm like, listen up. This is a process. This is a gift for women, and it can be a gift for you too. And here's where the gift is. The gift in your cycle is that your period cycle mimics the 4 seasons. And so in the 4 seasons, we have winter, spring, summer, and fall. And in the winter is your period. It's where you are cocooned and and you're internally feeling all your feelings rise to the surface. And it's like, oh, you cannot handle how much you feel. It is just right at the surface. And I've learned and taught my daughters and encouraged my sons to know this, that that is an opportunity for men and for women, but for women more importantly, to be able to be so in touch with your feelings that you then work those through and let them go. Let them go, bury them in to the earth, spilling, not literally your blood into the earth, but your life force, your blood, your perspective, letting it go into the earth so that the spring, the week after your period, can come and new things start to bud and rise. You start to feel life again. In the second week, you're creative in summer, fun. You're busy, you're creating, you're alive, you're making things happen. The days are longer. The days are all these, warm, and you're kind of not, everybody's on their summer vacation. It's kind of like that. Let's get this stuff done. And then fall comes. And it's like, okay, bring it down a little bit, bring it down, pull it down. Okay, let's settle in. We're getting busy, back to routine again. And then all of a sudden the next week, boom, there's your period again. And that's how the flow works. And so, with this perspective, we've lived, I lived for 40, 35, 38 years like that, knowing all of this was happening. And now with the pause, I don't have that. And I need to create for myself a routine, create for myself a way to continually remind myself, okay, Lori, you still get your winter, you still get your spring, summer, fall. You still get those four moments in your life. But it's not being taken away, which is what I felt. I thought it was being removed. I didn't get to control that. Now I get to replace it with my own level of self-care. Now, here's the perspective. Back then, I barely had time to care for myself. I don't know how many of you can resonate with this, but carving out time for myself when I was in my period was very, very difficult. I would often just tough through. And it was this act of endurance, especially when my children were little. Oh my gosh. But now I can reinvent that same 5 days, that same 7 days. And I can have this measure of love and affirmation for myself that goes beyond this crazy work. My kids are out of the house. I don't have to work for them. And my business, well, it's thriving. So I can work, I can do, but now there's more space. I've lived all these years, my knowledge, my experience. Oh my God, it's been beautiful. But now I get to reframe. And this is what I get to do. I mean, I also get to let go. And this is the important piece too, because as I discovered when I was writing this and creating this, script for these different parts of the menopause journey, I found myself like tense. I found my shoulders up. It's like, wait, why am I so tense? Because it's hard to move into how you feel. It's 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 been conditioned and put into my body to react. And sometimes when I think about communication or saying what I need or saying what I feel, I have a hard time. And I'm just saying that we get to live in a space where maybe you are just entered it, you're in your perimenopause, you're in your, menopause or wherever you are. You get to plant, harvest, hibernate. You get to do this. You get to hang on to things that you want to hang on to. You get to embrace emotions and make them your own instead of giving and giving and giving and giving and sweeping up everybody's emotion and making them your own and carrying them on your back and on your front and on your sides like a pack horse. We do this and we go and we never stop. You get to change how you function inside of that. You don't have to take on people's energy. You don't have to bear the weight of the responsibility of your children. They're grown adults. They can handle themselves. If they need advice, they can come and see you. They can come and talk to you. Your door's always open, but they need to learn how to live their freaking lives. They need to learn how to get some grit. They need to learn. And you don't always have to be the doorstop. You can move into a sacred no. Ah, and this is what I've been working on. That just came. I did not intention. That's just new. Like literally yesterday, I was sitting in meditation and I'm like, my no isn't sacred much these days. My yes isn't either. And I'm moving into a space where I want to connect so deeply to that sacred no, that space that exists inside of me that is connected deeply to something bigger than me. whatever your spiritual orientation, that, that thing, that God, that deity, whatever you want, that universe that's bigger than me, that I connect to, that I go, this is where we dwell now. I don't have to share this. My those days are gone for me. And now I can anchor myself and ground myself into wisdom. And I can move into the idea that I may never feel safe in my body. I've understood this. I don't, probably, maybe I never will. I'll probably always beat the crap out of myself, to myself. But one thing I know is that I can now alert myself. Instead of suffering under that narrative, I can now move into this other space that says, okay, I'm going to begin to allow my no to be my no because I've lived these years. And now I get to create something for me. And so if I want to do this, yes, yes, wholeheartedly yes. And if I don't, then it's wholeheartedly no. You can try to convince me. I can negotiate, but it'll be on my terms though. And I'm okay with that. I don't have to take on people's motives. I don't have to take on people's energy. I don't have to. Moving, this transition has said to me, Lori, you do not have to be responsible, overly responsible for anybody anymore. And and in the reinvention, you don't have to change your personality. That's not what's being asked here. What's being asked is begin to move into love for yourself. These are the years where we can explore as deep as we want, as surface as we want. You don't have to go incredibly deep. You can just take what I've said in the overview and part and about the feelings and with your symptoms and just go, yeah, you know what? My family wasn't really nurturing to me. And it's really tough. But you know what? That was then. And lots of life has been lived. And this is now. Then now I'm going to treat myself with respect and the love and the worthiness that I've always wanted to. See, because here's the thing, I have fought tooth and nail for certain levels of freedom in my life. And I know you have too. I have a deeper connection now to self worth, which is really interesting because self worth is knowing that I am worthy of love, belonging, and connection. That's what self worth is. These years aren't asking me to run around and support other people. These years are asking me and allowing me to give worthiness a shot, to give belonging a place in my life, to ground myself, to say to myself, I am worthy because I am. Because I am. Give yourself some credit. Look back at what you've done. Give yourself some credit. When I was, and then this was my knowledge that came to me too, was when I was 12, I wasn't, worthiness was not my thing. Self confidence was my thing. I needed to build the qualities that I wanted to be. I needed to look to people to have the qualities that I wanted to align with. I was looking for a marriage partner. I was looking for friends, and the qualities that they exhibited were the qualities that I wanted, and vice versa. And I was learning to be competent in what I wanted and what I didn't want. And that is the quest for self confidence. And I did that for decades. And not only that, but I also taught that to other people. I missed out on self worth. Self confidence was the thing, but that was just more, that wasn't the worthiness that I was after. Self-confident is important. Confidence in who you are is essential. We want to have that, but knowing that you're worthy, I didn't get that piece until I was in my mid 40s. And I never really felt that until 5 weeks ago. I'm serious. Knowing that I'm worthy came in this moment of transition for me where I stopped, losing my mind with the symptoms that I was having and the feelings about the slap. And I moved into a different space where I became the witness. And I'm like, well, what's happening in my body? Where is this showing up? I lost the desire to ask why. I don't care about why anymore. Why? Gone. What? What's happening? Where is it happening? Who is missing out on this? Am I missing out on this? This is really important to be mindful about what's happening in our body and to feel all the feelings you get to feel without judgment. Allow, reflect, because you, my friend, me, my friend, we are becoming. We are becoming into something that doesn't need to run around. It doesn't need to serve others unless you want to serve others, because we've already done this. You do not have to work for your worthiness. The space is being created for you. The opening is being created for you. The capability to sacredly honor your no. The path, your body is creating a path that is saying, hey, you get to rest. You don't have to run as hard. I want you to slow down. I want you to be introspective. Yes, outward is okay. I'm not saying it's not okay. Be youthful, be flexible, be youthful, look alive, look beautiful, go for it. But don't miss out on exploring the internal. That is the perspective that we get to have now. I give that to you as my process. And I'm still processing. So I'm, again, this is new. I did make a journal and I call it a journal because I'm not sure what else to call it. I want to maybe say reflection, but maybe not. Um, I just want to offer you the opportunity to look at things in a new way, to ask yourself some questions that can really help you become more consciously aware of where you are sitting in your life. And if you learn more things about yourself, that can't hurt. This is the opportunity, and that's what I'm going to provide for you. Take a look. You could explore the link, and I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled that you were able to listen. Maybe you take something from it, maybe you don't. That's okay. I don't care. This is as authentic as I can be. This is me reinventing myself, and I'm loving it. Thank you for your time. And if you're interested in following me, you can go to Instagram or my socials at The Lori Clarke Show, or you can go to my website, www.loriclarkemedia.com. I also have another Instagram. It's at Simply Gratitude Life. And you can head on over there for all of the things that make my life enjoyable. Be blessed. Have a fabulous day.